In a quiet Nashville evening, when the world believed her life was ordinary, Emma Lane stepped into a storm she never saw coming. A desperate father, a reckless gamble, and a stranger known only as the Dubai Maharaja, whose single fateful decision would bind their destinies forever. What began as a shocking transaction soon ignited a longing neither of them could escape. But secrets linger in the shadows, and the past has a way of demanding its price. Between duty and desire, between fear and the promise of love, Emma must choose the path that could save her or break her. If you love stories like this, subscribe and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Your support means everything. Emma Lane arrived at the entrance of the gleaming Nashville Gala with her heart pounding so loudly she could feel it in her throat. The marble steps shimmered beneath the warm glow of golden chandeliers, and elegant guests swept past her in suits and dresses worth more than her entire yearly income. She did not belong in a place like this. She knew it. Everyone knew it. But none of that mattered, because her father was inside, and he was about to ruin what little remained of their lives. She pushed open the heavy doors and stepped into a world of polished floors and soft jazz, her breath catching as she scanned the crowd. Her voice trembled as she asked a server if he had seen Daniel Lane. The server frowned, hesitated, then lifted a subtle hand toward a velvet curtain near the back of the hall. "Back there, ma'am," he whispered. "But they are very strict about who goes in." Emma did not wait. She hurried across the room, nearly tripping on the edge of the carpet. The curtain parted beneath her shaking fingers, revealing a dim passageway that led to a guarded door. Two men in tailored suits blocked her path, their expressions flat. "I need to see my father," she pleaded, breathless. "Daniel Lane, he is in there." The taller guard exchanged a look with the other, then shook his head. "Private game, no entry." Emma's desperation sharpened her voice. "He is sick. He should not be gambling. Please let me get him." Before they could respond, a muffled cheer erupted from the other side of the door. Followed by her father's familiar, shaky laugh, terror climbed her spine. Without thinking, Emma pushed past the guards and the door slammed open under her weight. She froze. A round table sat beneath a single hanging light, illuminating 6 men with perfectly pressed suits and expressions carved from arrogance. Her father sat among them, pale, sweating, clutching his cards like they were oxygen. And opposite him, in the seat of power, was Levi Whitaker. She recognized him instantly. The tabloids called him the Dubai Maharaja, an American billionaire whose life was polished into legend. Private jets, Dubai penthouses, deals whispered across continents. She had seen photos of him before, but nothing compared to the real man. He sat with commanding stillness, his dark eyes unreadable, his posture relaxed but impossibly controlled. Every other man at that table orbited him, waiting for his smallest gesture. Emma's father jolted when he saw her. "Emma!" he choked out, pushing back from the table. "Sweetheart, what are you doing here?" "What have you done?" she asked, her voice breaking as she stepped toward him. "What did you sign?" The man beside him smirked. "A fair wager, voluntary, binding." Emma's stomach turned. She snatched the paper from the table, her gaze racing over the words. Her breath stopped. Her father had not wagered money. He had wagered her services for 1 year, under the authority of whichever man won the final hand. It looked almost legitimate, crafted with cold legal precision. Her knees weakened, but fury held her upright. "What is this?" she whispered. "Dad, how could you do this?" Daniel crumbled under her gaze. "I had no choice. Emma, they would have hurt me. I just needed one more hand, one more chance." "One more chance?" she repeated, tears stinging her eyes. "You gambled away me." Silence rippled across the room until Levi Whitaker slowly reached for the final card placed in front of him. He did not look at Emma nor at Daniel. His eyes stayed on the table, his expression inscrutable, as if he were weighing more than numbers. When he finally turned over his card, the room exhaled in unison. Levi had won. The men applauded softly. One leaned forward. "Well, Whitaker, it seems the girl belongs to you." Emma flinched. "I do not belong to anyone." Finally, Levi looked at her. And the moment his gaze met hers, something shifted in the air. His eyes were deep brown, steady, piercing without being cruel. He studied her with unsettling intensity, as though he could already see the fracture lines beneath her strength. He rose to his feet with slow, deliberate control. His voice was quiet, velvety, but sharp enough to silence the room. "This contract," he said, lifting the paper between two fingers, "is an abomination." Victor Hale leaned back, amused. "It is legally binding." Levi's jaw tightened. Not anymore. He tore the contract clean in half. The sound sliced through the room. Emma gasped. The other men exchanged stiffened looks, eyes narrowing. "That paper," Levi continued, "will not dictate her life." Victor smirked. "You think tearing it voids the agreement? Copies exist, filings exist. You know how this works, Whitaker." Emma felt nausea coil in her stomach. Levi lowered his voice, dangerous in its calm. "You will release Daniel Lane from all debts. You will never contact Emma Lane again, and you will not mention this night outside this room." "Or what?" Victor asked, grin widening. "You will buy the building, the city, the whole damn country." Levi's eyes darkened. "Do not test me." The air crackled. Levi was not shouting, not threatening, not raising a hand, but the room bent around him as if it recognized a king. Victor stood. He walked slowly toward Emma, too close, too curious. "Your father sold you, my dear, not us. Perhaps you should keep your anger where it belongs." Emma recoiled, trembling. Levi stepped between them so swiftly Emma barely saw him move. His voice dipped into a tone that left no room for defiance. "Step back." Victor's smile faltered. He lifted his hands in mock surrender and returned to his seat. But the warning in his eyes chilled Emma's blood. Levi turned to her father. "You are leaving with me. Both of you." Emma lifted her chin. "I am not going anywhere with a stranger." Levi held her gaze. Something warm flickered behind the steel. "I understand. But your safety is compromised here." She searched his eyes, desperate to understand this man. "Why do you care?" For the first time, he seemed caught off guard, not by her words, but by the emotion they stirred. "I care," he said softly, "because you should never have been placed in this room." Her breath hitched. He extended a hand toward her, not in command, but in invitation. Emma hesitated. She did not trust him. She did not trust anyone here. But the alternative was Victor Hale's chilling stare and a contract that refused to die even when torn. She placed her hand in Levi's. The moment their palms touched, she felt an electric jolt. Not desire, not fear, but something deeper, something dangerous. Levi closed his fingers around hers gently, as if she were breakable, and he refused to be the one who caused the fracture. "Come with me," he murmured. "I will not let them touch you again." Emma swallowed hard. "Do not make promises you cannot keep." His eyes softened, a flicker of vulnerability beneath the power. "I keep the ones that matter." Levi guided her out of the room with quiet authority, his presence shielding her from every predatory gaze. Her world was collapsing around her, but somehow, without understanding why, she felt steadier walking beside him than she had in years. Outside, under the warm Nashville lights, Emma finally exhaled. She had no idea what fate she had stepped into, but she knew one thing with certainty. Levi Whitaker was not a man you won in a card game. He was a man who changed the rules. Emma Lane woke to the unfamiliar weight of silence. Not the gentle silence of early mornings in her small apartment, where the old refrigerator hummed and the traffic outside murmured softly, but a breathless, suspended silence that felt too still, too intentional, as if every sound had been carefully arranged to avoid startling her. She blinked up at the ceiling, her heartbeat slow to trust the calm. Warm morning light filtered through gauzy curtains, washing the room in shades of cream and honey. The bed beneath her was soft, impossibly soft, wrapped in linens that smelled faintly of lavender and something expensive she could not name. For a moment she felt suspended between dreams and memory, caught in that fragile space where nothing yet hurts. Then everything returned. The room, the contract, the men. The way Levi Whittaker had stepped between her and danger like a force of nature she had not expected. The weight of his hand around hers, firm and reassuring. The way his voice had wrapped around her like velvet when he told her he would not let anyone touch her again. Emma sat up quickly, clutching the comforter to her chest as if the fabric might anchor her. She inhaled deeply, letting her gaze sweep around the space. It was not a hotel. It did not have the hollow, impersonal sterility of corporate housing. It was warm, lived-in, discreet. Pale walls, soft light, furnishings that whispered understated luxury rather than declared it. A safe house. She had heard the guards murmuring last night as they guided her through a private entrance, but exhaustion had made her body feel heavy, her thoughts scattered. She had not absorbed the details. Now it dawned on her. Levi had not taken her to one of his public residences. He had not whisked her into the kind of penthouse the tabloids loved to show. All glass walls and sweeping city views. No, he had chosen something that protected her rather than displayed her. She exhaled slowly. A gentle knock sounded on the door. Emma swallowed. Yes? The door opened halfway, and a woman stepped inside with the cautious grace of someone trained not to intrude. She was petite, with sleek hair pulled into a tidy bun, and a soft smile that somehow did not feel forced. "Good morning, Miss Lane," she said warmly. "My name is Tessa Nguyen. Mr. Whittaker asked me to check on you." Emma stiffened at the mention of his name. "Is he here?" "He is in the next room, speaking with security," Tessa replied delicately. "He did not want to disturb you." Emma's breath wavered. She rubbed the back of her neck, unsure what one was supposed to say in a situation like this. Her father had gambled her away. A billionaire had torn the contract. A network of men she did not understand wanted something from her. And now she was in a stranger's safe house trying to pull her sense of self together with trembling hands. Tessa stepped closer, her voice gentle. "Would you like something to drink? Tea? Coffee?" "Coffee," Emma whispered. "Black, please." Tessa nodded. "Of course." As she turned to leave, Emma found her own voice surprising her. "Tessa?" "Yes." Emma swallowed tightly. "Is this real? Am I actually safe?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Vulnerability cracked through her words, leaving her exposed. Tessa's expression softened with sincerity. "Yes, Miss Lane. You are safe here. Mr. Whittaker has made sure of that." Emma nodded slowly, absorbing the reassurance, though her heart still beat unevenly. After Tessa left, Emma dressed carefully, choosing clothes from her small overnight bag she had brought from her apartment. She slipped into simple jeans and a soft sweater, the color of pale wheat. She tied her chestnut-brown hair back with an elastic and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes looked tired, frightened, but under the fear there was something else, resolve. She would not allow herself to be defined by last night. When she stepped out into the hallway, she found it softly lit, clean and quiet, and just ahead, she saw him. Levi stood, with one hand braced lightly on the back of a chair, speaking quietly to Miles, the tall, watchful security chief she had met briefly the night before. Even in a simple charcoal-grey sweater and dark trousers, Levi's presence filled the room. He looked composed, but tension coiled subtly in the line of his jaw, the set of his shoulders. His hair was slightly tousled, as though he had been running his hand through it while thinking. Miles noticed her first and nodded subtly in greeting. Levi turned. The moment his eyes met hers, Emma felt the breath leave her lungs. "Good morning," he said softly, his voice deeper than she remembered in the haze of last night. "Did you sleep at all?" She hesitated. "A little." He nodded, as if he understood more than she wanted him to. "You are safe here, Emma." Her chest tightened at the way he said her name, gentle yet steady, as if offering her something solid to stand on. She folded her arms lightly. "Where exactly is here?" "A private residence I use when I need absolute discretion," he said. "Not public, not traceable to my home or my company's. The people who tried to trap you cannot find you here." Emma shifted her weight. "And how long do you expect me to stay?" "As long as you need," he answered calmly, "until we understand exactly what they want." Emma felt frustration surge. "I never wanted any of this. Levi, I did not ask you to rescue me." His expression changed almost imperceptibly, a brief flicker of emotion crossing his eyes. Not offense, not annoyance, something more complex. "I know," he murmured, "and I did not rescue you to make you feel indebted. I stepped in because what they tried to do to you was wrong, and I will not allow them to continue." Emma looked away, overwhelmed by the intensity in his words. She was not accustomed to a man who spoke so quietly, yet could shake her foundations. Before she could reply, Tessa returned with a tray. "Coffee?" "Yes, thank you," Emma said. Tessa handed her the cup, then offered a second one to Levi. When he refused with a shake of his head, Emma noticed the slight tremor in his fingers as he rested his hand on the table. He was not nearly as calm as he appeared. Miles cleared his throat. "Sir, the press has escalated. Someone leaked that Ms. Lane was involved in last night's contract." Emma nearly dropped her cup. "What?" Levi's gaze sharpened. "How many outlets?" "3, Miles said. "And climbing." Emma's voice shook. "They think I agreed to that I wanted to be offered like that." Levi stepped closer, his tone wrapped in velvet and gravity. "No one who matters will believe that lie." "But strangers will," Emma whispered, tears burning her eyes. "People who have no idea who I am, who only see headlines. They will judge me, they will destroy me online, they will call me horrible things." Levi's expression softened, with something that felt dangerously like tenderness. He reached out, slowly, giving her time to pull back if she wished. When she did not move, he gently brushed a tear from her cheek with the back of his knuckle. His touch was barely there, but the warmth of it radiated all the way to her soul. "Look at me," he murmured. She did. "I will not let anyone tarnish your name," he said. "I will address the press, and I will make it clear you had no part in that scheme." Emma exhaled shakily. "Why are you doing all this for me? You owe me nothing." Levi held her gaze, and she felt the room fall away for a moment. "You deserved better than what happened last night," he said softly. "And whether you believe it or not, I want to help you reclaim the part of your life that those men tried to steal." Emma swallowed hard. "I do not know if I can trust you." His voice dropped to a quiet, almost intimate register. "I am not asking for your trust, Emma. Only your permission to protect you until you can stand without fear." Her heart thudded painfully. No man had ever spoken to her with such controlled passion, such respect entwined with unmistakable intensity. Miles discreetly stepped back to give them privacy, and Tessa busied herself with her tablet, pretending not to notice the electricity weaving between Emma and Levi. Emma took a slow breath, steadying herself. "And what about my father?" Levi's jaw tightened. "We will find him, but for now, I want you focused on yourself." She looked away. "That is easier said than done." "Emma," Levi said softly, "you have carried the weight of your father's choices for far too long. You are allowed to rest." His sincerity disarmed her completely. Emma lowered herself into a chair, suddenly aware of how exhausted she truly was. Levi sat across from her, maintaining a respectful distance, but watching her with unwavering attention. His gaze was not predatory, nor possessive, nor pitying. It was something else, something she could not name without trembling. "I do not know how to navigate any of this," she admitted quietly. "You do not have to," he replied. "You are not alone." She met his gaze again. "I do not want to be a burden." "You are not," he said instantly. "If anything, you are the first person in a long time who reminds me that the world is still capable of being honest." Emma blinked, startled by the vulnerable admission. A billionaire, worshipped by tabloids, adored by investors, confessing something so raw and unpolished. His eyes held hers steadily. "And I am glad," he whispered, "that our paths crossed last night. Even under such terrible circumstances." Her breath caught. "Levi!" He leaned forward just slightly, enough for his voice to lower into something meant only for her. "If you ever feel unsafe, if your thoughts overwhelm you, if the world presses too hard, tell me. I will be here." Her heart began to race again, not with fear this time, but with a warmth she had not felt in years, a warmth that scared her almost as much as the night before. She whispered, "Thank you." A faint smile touched his lips. "You do not need to thank me. Just take care of yourself today." Before she could respond, Miles stepped forward again. "Sir, more press outside headquarters. It is getting intense." Levi rose slowly, his eyes never leaving Emma until the last possible moment. "I have to address this, but I will return soon." Emma nodded. "Be careful." His expression softened, his voice lowering into something between a promise and a vow. "Always." Then he left with Miles, and the room exhaled with him. Emma sat there, her coffee warm in her hands, her pulse unsteady, her heart caught somewhere between fear and something that felt suspiciously like hope. She had not asked for this man to enter her life, but the moment he did, everything began to change. The day after Levi Whittaker left to confront the press unfolded with a weight that pressed slowly, deliberately against Emma Lane's chest. The safe house remained quiet, wrapped in a cocoon of stillness that felt both protective and suffocating. Even the early afternoon light drifting through the windows seemed cautious, as if afraid to disturb the fragile balance inside her. She sat, curled on a cream-colored sofa, hugging her knees to her chest, staring at the muted television screen that Tessa had turned on to keep her company. News anchors spoke in polished tones, their voices too calm for the storm they were describing. Her name appeared across the bottom of the screen in bold letters, each syllable feeling like a bruise. Tessa muted the volume as soon as she entered the room. "You do not need to watch this, Emma." Emma lowered her eyes. "I know. I feel like if I turn it off, everything will get worse when I turn it back on." Tessa sat beside her, gentle and composed. "You are not alone in this." Emma nodded faintly, though her chest tightened with a fear she could not fully name. Her father had vanished. The network of men who had nearly trapped her remained free, and Levi, her breath caught, Levi had stepped into the fire of public scrutiny on her behalf. "Has he called?" Emma whispered. Tessa shook her head. Not yet, but he will. He is handling a crisis, Emma, I promise. If anything changes, you will be the first to know. Emma exhaled slowly, trying to steady the tremor in her fingers. I am afraid for him. You care about him, Tessa said softly. Emma looked away. I barely know him. Sometimes knowing someone has nothing to do with how long they have been in your life, Tessa replied, with quiet wisdom. Before Emma could respond, Miles appeared in the doorway, his expression serious. Miss Lane, may I speak with you? Emma stood, smoothing the wrinkles from her sweater. Of course. Miles gestured toward the small study across the hall. When Emma stepped inside, she felt a coil of dread tighten inside her. Miles closed the door gently. Emma, he began, his tone steady but firm. We have been monitoring your father's phone. Last night it stopped pinging. It indicates the device was disabled or destroyed. Her heart dropped so suddenly she had to grip the back of a chair. Destroyed? Why? Did someone hurt him? We do not know, Miles said, but it means we cannot track him at the moment. Emma pressed a hand to her forehead. He is alone out there, probably terrified, maybe hurt. She looked up sharply. We have to find him. We are trying, Miles assured her. But I need you to understand something important. The men involved in that charity event are not amateurs. They have resources, influence. They may try to use your father to get to you. Emma's breath caught. But why? I have nothing they want. Miles hesitated. They think you have Levi. Emma stared at him, stunned. That is ridiculous. I do not have Levi. A corner of Miles's mouth twitched. Maybe not in the way they imagine, but he interfered with their operation, and you were at the center of that interference. Emma felt a tremor run through her. So what do we do? Stay here, Miles said firmly. Let us handle the search. Do not leave this house. She nodded, though fear began to coil in her stomach like smoke slipping under a door. When Miles left the study, Emma sank into a chair, her hands trembling in her lap. She pressed her palms to her cheeks, fighting tears. Everything felt like it was unraveling, thread by painful thread. Footsteps sounded softly outside the study, then a familiar voice, low and steady, reached her. Emma! She lifted her head. Levi stood in the doorway. Her breath caught instantly. He looked exhausted, as if the weight of the world had settled on his shoulders and refused to lift. His charcoal sweater was slightly rumpled, his hair tousled in a way that betrayed how many times he had dragged his hand through it, but his eyes, deep brown, warm, focused entirely on her, held an intensity that made her knees soft. She stood slowly. You are back. His voice was soft, almost reverent. I told you I would be. Emma swallowed, unable to stop her eyes from tracing the tension in his jaw, the barely concealed frustration that lingered beneath the surface of his calm. He stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind him. His gaze swept her face, searching, as if ensuring she was truly standing before him and not a figment created by exhaustion. He approached her with slow, controlled steps. Are you all right? Emma let out a shaky laugh. I do not know. There is so much happening so fast. They say my father's phone was destroyed. Levi's expression shifted, pain flashing across his features. I know, Miles told me. So he is really missing. Yes, Levi said quietly, but we will find him. Emma looked up at him helplessly. I do not know how to do this. I do not know how to breathe with all of this hanging over me. Levi stepped closer, so close the heat of his body warmed the air between them. He reached out slowly, brushing a lock of hair from her cheek. The gesture was tender, careful, as if he feared breaking her with too much pressure. You do not have to carry this alone, he murmured. Her heart thudded painfully. Why are you being so kind to me? His thumb lingered just at the edge of her jaw, sending sparks down her spine. "Because you deserve kindness, Emma. Because what happened to you was wrong, and because I cannot stand the thought of you feeling abandoned." Her breath trembled. "You barely know me." He leaned in just enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath on her forehead. "Sometimes we recognize a soul before we understand it." Emma felt the world narrow to the space between them. Her pulse fluttered beneath her skin, delicate and unsteady. She did not pull away. He cupped her cheek gently with his hand. "Tell me what you're thinking." She exhaled shakily. "I am thinking I should be afraid, that everything around me is falling apart, that I do not understand why you make me feel safe." Levi's eyes softened. "I will never hurt you." She believed him. Against all reason, she believed him. When he stepped back, only by a fraction of an inch, the absence of his touch felt like cold air rushing in. He ran a hand through his hair again, exhaling. "There is something I need to tell you." Emma nodded, bracing herself. Levi hesitated, his gaze drifting toward the floor for a moment as though he were gathering strength to reveal something heavy. When he looked back at her, there was no distance left in his eyes. "What happened last night," he said quietly, "was not random. I was not at that charity event for entertainment. I was there because I have been tracking those men for months." Emma blinked. "Tracking them? Why?" "Because they are part of a network," he explained. "They hide behind charity, behind philanthropy. They target desperate people, manipulate contracts, trap them in financial and social cages." Emma felt a cold shock wrap around her. "So you knew what they were capable of?" "Yes," he admitted, "but I did not expect them to use you. I did not expect them to drag you into their scheme." Emma swallowed. "But why were you investigating them?" Levi's silence deepened until Emma wondered if she had asked too much. Finally, he spoke, his voice low, controlled, but woven with a pain that felt old and buried too deeply. "Because someone I cared about was hurt by a similar scheme, and I could not save her." Emma's breath caught at the quiet devastation in his tone. "Levi," he shook his head slightly as if refusing to dwell on the wound, "I tell you this because I want you to understand something. Everything I am doing, it is not out of pity. It is not charity. It is not guilt." His gaze locked onto hers with breathtaking intensity. "It is because your life matters, because your freedom matters, because you are not collateral, and I will do everything in my power to protect you." Emma felt tears spill down her cheeks, but this time they were born not of fear, but of the raw tenderness in his voice. Levi stepped closer again, lifting his hand to wipe her tears with the gentlest brush of his fingers. "Please do not cry." "I cannot help it," Emma whispered. "You make me feel seen." A softness unfurled in his expression, as if her words touched a part of him he rarely let anyone near. He leaned his forehead lightly against hers, the smallest contact, but enough to make her heart race uncontrollably. His voice was barely more than a breath. "You are seen, Emma, more than you know." She closed her eyes, letting herself sink into the warmth of his presence, the quiet strength that seemed to surround him like gravity. She felt his thumb stroke over her cheekbone, a touch so careful it made her breath tremble. When he finally pulled back, the distance felt almost unbearable. "There is more," he said softly. "Tessa received something this morning." Emma looked up, startled. "What is it?" "A scanned copy of the contract your father signed." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "But you tore it." "I tore the one in the room," he explained gently. "But the men behind this kept a copy. They filed it through one of their shell companies." Emma's voice cracked. "So they still think they own me." Levi stepped forward again, capturing her hands in his. "No, they do not own you. They never will. That document means nothing. unless we let it. But they are using it, she whispered, to scare me, to scare you. Levi brought her hands to his chest, holding them against the warmth of his heartbeat. Emma, look at me. She did. His eyes burned with determination. I will not let anyone define your life through a piece of paper. You are not powerless. You are not alone. Her breath shook. Then what do we do? We fight, he said simply. Together. The word together settled between them, with a weight that felt like destiny, and then, as if drawn by an invisible force, stronger than fear, Emma whispered a question that felt like stepping into a flame. Can I trust you, Levi? His gaze deepened into something reverent, almost aching. Yes, he murmured, with everything you are willing to give. Emma felt her heart break open. Not from pain. From the terrifying, astonishing possibility of hope. Emma Lane stood in front of the wide living room window, her hand pressed lightly against the glass as the Nashville sun dipped behind distant rooftops. The sky glowed with soft amber and rose, colors that should have soothed her, but only deepened the ache inside her chest. The world looked peaceful beyond the safe house walls, yet peace felt impossibly far from her reach. Behind her, the quiet hum of conversation drifted from the adjacent room, where Tessa Nguyen spoke with someone on the phone. Emma could hear fragments of phrases slipping through the air like unwelcome ghosts. Defamation is escalating. Coordinated leaks. Fabricated narratives. Emma closed her eyes, her fingers curling slightly against the cool window pane. She wanted to disappear from the headlines, from the rumors, from the cold digital cruelty of strangers who believed they knew her story. Every hour brought new comments, new accusations, new distortions of her life. She had already been stripped of her dignity by her father's desperation. Now the world wanted to take what little remained. A soft footstep behind her sent a shiver up her spine. Emma. His voice. She turned slowly. Levi Whitaker stood in the doorway, framed by warm lamplight that softened the sharp lines of his shoulders. He looked impossibly composed, yet Emma sensed the tension beneath the surface. His charcoal suit jacket had been discarded, his crisp white shirt rolled slightly at the sleeves, and a faint shadow of stubble marked his jaw. His hair was slightly unkempt, as though he had dragged his hand through it repeatedly. His eyes, however, were steady, deep, focused entirely on her. Emma swallowed. They are still posting things about me. I know, Levi said, stepping nearer. And we are addressing it. She studied his face, searching for the calm she needed. It feels like the whole world is against me. He approached her slowly, each step carrying an intentional softness, as if he feared startling her. When he stopped just inches away, she felt his presence wrap around her, warm and grounding. The world is loud, he murmured, but it does not define you, and you are not facing it alone. She blinked, tears forming in the corners of her eyes. What if the lies ruin me? A flicker of emotion crossed Levi's features. Something protective and fierce, yet held tightly, under elegant restraint. He lifted a hand toward her cheek, but paused, waiting for her permission. Emma leaned into the touch. He brushed away a tear with his thumb. Lies break only when truth stands firmly enough, and you, Emma Lane, have a strength that no rumor can destroy. Her breath trembled as she held his gaze. Today, Levi continued gently, Tessa and I discussed a strategy, but it requires your consent. Emma's brows lifted. A strategy? He nodded, though something in his expression told her he was choosing every word with care. Yes. The rumors will not simply fade. They are being fed, amplified, weaponized. If we do nothing, the story takes on a life of its own. But if we step forward with a different narrative... Emma stiffened. What narrative? Levi breathed in deeply, his eyes softening with a mixture of caution and emotion. A relationship, he said quietly. Hours. Emma's heart lurched. Levi. He shook his head, stepping even closer as his voice dropped into something intimate, apologetic, but unwavering. I would never ask you to pretend to be something you are not, and I would never ask you to compromise your dignity. But the public believes what it wants to believe. If they see us as choosing each other willingly, the accusations fall apart. Emma stared into his eyes, searching for any trace of manipulation. She found none, only sincerity, and beneath it, a vulnerability so subtle it made her chest tighten. You want us to pretend we are together, she whispered. Yes, Levi murmured. If you agree, if you feel comfortable, it will protect you from the narrative they are trying to build. Emma's pulse fluttered. The idea of being seen by the world as Levi Whittaker's partner felt surreal, impossible, frightening, and yet, when his eyes held hers, she felt a warmth that had nothing to do with strategy. She took a slow breath. And if they think we are together, they will stop portraying me as a woman who was bought. Levi's jaw tightened with quiet fury at the word. Exactly. The moment they see you as someone I care about, the contract loses its power in the court of public perception. Emma closed her eyes for a moment. The situation felt like a telenovela plot she would have once laughed at if her own life were not the story. When she opened them again, Levi was still watching her as though her answer was the only one that mattered in the world. I do not want to be used, she said softly. You will not be, he promised. I do not want to appear like a woman who needs to cling to a man for protection. Hush, you are not that woman, he said immediately, his voice firm and rich with admiration, and anyone who sees you will understand that. She breathed slowly, processing. And what about you? She asked. Your reputation? Levi stepped closer, his sincerity deepening. My reputation can withstand anything. You are the one in danger. My priority is you. The words struck something deep inside her, something she had kept guarded for far too long. She nodded slowly. Then, we will do it. For the first time that day, Levi's expression softened into something like relief, though he masked it almost instantly. He reached for her hand in a gesture so gentle she felt heat rush through her. His fingers wrapped around hers with a tenderness that sent her pulse racing. Emma, he said softly, I will make sure this never feels like a performance meant to diminish you. She stared up at him, feeling the contained tension in the air thicken with unsaid longing. Then how should it feel? His thumb brushed the back of her hand in a slow, deliberate stroke. Real enough that they believe us, and respectful enough that you never feel cornered. Emma felt her breath catch. The space between them seemed to glow with something fragile and powerful. When would this narrative begin? She asked quietly. Tonight, Levi replied. There is a small charity event where I am expected. We will go together. Emma blinked. Tonight? He nodded. I will not pressure you to speak publicly. You will simply stand beside me. You choose how you present yourself. I will follow your lead. Her heart raced. The thought of entering a public space with Levi Whittaker at her side felt daunting, but also strangely empowering. All right, she whispered. His eyes softened. Thank you for trusting me. I am learning, she murmured. His lips curved in a faint, tender smile. I will not fail you. Later that evening, Emma stood before the mirror in the safe-house bedroom, wearing the dress Tessa had chosen for her, a deep, forest green gown that fell gracefully over her figure, elegant without ostentation. It was contemporary, clean and dignified, exactly what she needed the world to see. She smoothed the fabric nervously. Her reflection stared back with eyes wide and uncertain, yet underneath the fear she sensed a quiet strength she had not recognized before. A soft knock pulled her from her thoughts. "Emma?" Levi's voice drifted through the door, low and warm. She inhaled deeply. "Come in." The door opened and Levi stepped inside. For a moment he simply stood still. His eyes traveled slowly over her silhouette, his breath catching so subtly she would have missed it had she not been watching him with trembling awareness. His suit was midnight black, tailored to his frame with immaculate precision, his white shirt crisp, his posture magnetic. But his eyes, deep, warm, astonished, were what held her captive. "Emma," he said softly, reverently, "you are extraordinary." Heat rose to her cheeks. "Thank you." He stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "Are you ready?" She nodded, though her heart pounded. "As ready as I can be." He offered his hand with a gentleness that sent a shiver up her spine. "Shall we?" She placed her hand in his. The moment their fingers intertwined, the world narrowed to the space between them. Levi squeezed her hand lightly, his voice deep and reassuring. "I will be right beside you the entire time." As they walked out of the safe house together, Emma felt the night air brush her skin, cool and alive. The moment she stepped into the car beside Levi, the nearness of his body, the quiet warmth of his presence, wrapped around her like a promise. Their eyes met briefly, a silent exchange filled with unspoken emotion. "Whatever happens out there," Levi murmured, "remember this moment. You chose strength. You chose dignity. And I stand with you." Emma breathed deeply, letting his words settle in the space between them. She did not say it aloud, but her heart whispered it nonetheless. She felt safer when he was near, and for the first time since her world had shattered, she allowed herself to feel something dangerously close to hope. The ride back to the safe house after the charity event felt like drifting through a dream Emma Lane could not fully process. The world outside the car windows blurred into streaks of gold and shadow, but inside the vehicle the air pulsed with a quiet, charged intensity. Emma sat beside Levi Whittaker, their shoulders nearly touching, their hands resting close enough on the seat between them that she felt every breath he exhaled echo through her. He had stayed near her all evening, not controlling her, not guiding her like a possession, but simply anchoring her. His gaze had softened whenever she grew tense, and the warmth in his eyes had steadied her knees when the room filled with curious whispers. She had felt the transformation in the atmosphere, the way people looked at her differently because she was at Levi's side, the way a single hand placed gently at the small of her back had silenced speculation and replaced it with awe. But now, inside the safe darkness of the car, the glamour faded away, leaving only the fragile truth beating between them. Emma watched his profile in the dim light, the strong line of his jaw, the faint crease between his brows that appeared whenever he worried, the way his fingers tapped lightly against his knee, as if keeping time with a rhythm only he could hear. He looked powerful even like this, undone by exhaustion, and yet Emma sensed that beneath his calm exterior something complex and vulnerable stirred. "Levi," she whispered softly, not wanting to disturb the solitude, yet needing to break the silence. His head turned slightly toward her. "Yes?" "You barely said a word after we left the event. Are you all right?" His eyes flickered with something unreadable before he looked away again. "I am fine." Emma leaned in, studying him. "That does not sound like the truth." For a moment he did not respond. Then he let out a long, slow breath, as though her question had punctured a carefully maintained shield. "I am thinking," he murmured. "About what?" His gaze returned to her, deep and dark with restrained emotion. "About everything I cannot protect you from." The words pierced her. "Levi, you have done more for me than anyone else has in my entire life." He gave a faint, almost tortured smile. "I wish that were not true." Her heart clenched at the softness of his voice. Why? Because you deserved better long before I appeared in the picture, he said quietly. You deserved a life untouched by men who prey on the vulnerable. You deserved a father who cherished you, not one who gambled away your safety. Emma looked down, her throat tightening. She felt Levi's gaze soften immediately. I am sorry, he murmured. I never want to hurt you with my honesty. You did not hurt me, she whispered. I never thought anyone would see the truth of my life the way you do. Levi's hand moved hesitantly toward hers, as if drawn by an instinct deeper than caution. When his fingers brushed hers, a tremor sparked through her entire body. He intertwined their hands slowly, giving her room to pull away. She did not. The warmth of his touch spread through her, steady and protective. She looked up at him, meeting his intense gaze. You are very quiet tonight, she said. His tongue pressed lightly against the inside of his cheek, a gesture she had begun to recognize as one he made when debating whether to speak or remain silent. Finally, he answered. There is something I need to tell you, he murmured. Something I have avoided saying because I feared adding more weight to your shoulders. Emma's breath hitched. What is it? Levi looked away, his expression tightening with a shadow of pain. Your father came to see me. Emma felt her stomach flip. When? Earlier today, he said softly. Before we left for the event. Her pulse raced. Is he all right? He was shaken, Levi answered, confused, terrified, but alive. Emma covered her mouth, tears stinging her eyes. Why did he not come to me? Levi's voice deepened with regret. Because he was ashamed. Emma's heart ached. Ashamed. He said he had failed you again, Levi murmured. That he had brought danger into your life for the 1,000th time. That he did not know how to face you without breaking. She felt a sob rise in her throat, but she smothered it, pressing her hand tightly against her lips. What did you tell him? She whispered. I told him the truth, Levi said, his eyes darkening. That his choices hurt you, that you deserved better, but also that he needed to make himself accountable instead of running from the mess he created. Emma blinked at him, astonished. You said that to him? Yes, Levi replied with quiet certainty, because it needed to be said, and because you deserve someone who speaks for you when you are too wounded to speak for yourself. Her heart clenched in a deep, powerful ache. She had never known a man who defended her like this, who saw her, fully, without adornment or excuse, and still stood by her side. What did he say? She whispered. Levi looked down, brushing his thumb slowly along her knuckles as though grounding her. He said he wanted to fix things. He said he would do anything to repair the damage. Pain flickered across her features. My father always says that. I know, Levi murmured gently. But Emma, he also said something else. She looked up, searching his eyes. What? That he is afraid of the men behind that contract, Levi said softly, more afraid than he has ever been in his life. Emma's breath trembled. Of course he is. They nearly trapped him. They nearly trapped me. Levi lifted her hand, brushing the back of it lightly with his lips. The contact was gentle, reverent, filled with a tenderness that made her chest tighten. I promise you, he whispered against her skin, I will not let anyone harm you. Her breath caught, and when their eyes met, something fragile and intense shimmered between them. Levi, she murmured, her voice trembling with emotion she could no longer contain. Why are you doing all this for me? His gaze softened into something devastatingly sincere. Because the moment I saw you in that room, he said slowly, I knew you were someone whose dignity mattered, someone whose strength deserved protection, not exploitation. Emma felt tears spill down her cheeks. And because, he continued, brushing her tears away with gentle fingers, I have spent too many years fighting battles with no soul attached to them. But you make the fight mean something." Her heart broke open at the rawness of his admission. "You hardly know me." He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching hers. "I know enough." She felt his breath, warm and unsteady, wash across her skin. "I know you are brave," he murmured. "I know you carry pain with grace. I know you think more of others than yourself. And I know that when you look at me, I feel something I have not felt in a very long time." Emma's pulse fluttered wildly. "And what is that?" she whispered. His hand lifted to cup her cheek with exquisite gentleness. "Hope." Her breath stilled. He leaned even closer, the space between them dissolving into heat and trembling awareness. Emma felt the warmth of his body, the strength of his presence, the softness of his breath brushing the corner of her mouth. "Levi," she whispered, "I do not want to become another responsibility to you." He shook his head slowly. "You are not a responsibility, Emma. You are the one thing in my life that feels honest." Her eyes glistened with emotion. "I am afraid." "I know," he said softly, his thumb tracing her jawline. "But you are not alone." Their breaths intertwined, their foreheads touched. For a moment the world outside disappeared. No headlines, no rumors, no threats. Only the quiet, powerful ache between two souls trying to find safety in each other. Then, with a trembling exhalation, Emma whispered the truth she had been afraid to admit, even to herself. "When you are near me," she said, "I feel like I can breathe again." A soft groan escaped Levi's chest, raw, emotional, unguarded. His fingers tightened gently around her hand, as if anchoring himself. "And when you speak to me like that," he whispered, "I forget every reason I ever had to stay distant." Emma lifted her eyes to his, and the emotion in them made her knees weak. "Levi," she breathed, "what are we doing?" His voice dropped to a husky, vulnerable whisper, "Something I cannot walk away from." Before either of them could say more, a soft knock sounded at the window of the car. It was Miles. Reluctantly, painfully, Levi pulled back slightly, though his fingers lingered against her cheek for one last, lingering second. "We should go inside," he murmured. Emma nodded, her breath still shaky. "Yes." But when Levi opened the car door and stepped out, he paused and looked back at her with a gaze so tender, so quietly passionate, it sent a tremor through her entire body. He extended a hand to her again. "Come with me," he whispered. And when she took his hand, warmth flooded her in a way she had never known before. Inside the house, the atmosphere shifted as they entered the softly lit living room. Tessa glanced up from her laptop, and Miles straightened from where he had been reviewing security footage. But it was Levi's quiet presence beside her, the steady brush of his hand against hers that kept her grounded, safe, whole. Emma did not know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight she felt the truth as surely as she felt her heartbeat. She was falling for Levi Whittaker. Slowly, deeply, irrevocably. And for the first time since her father had gambled her life away, the fragile light of hope began to grow inside her again. The morning light draped softly across the safe house as Emma Lane stepped into the living room, barefoot, her hair gathered loosely at the nape of her neck. The warm, golden glow filtering through the tall windows made everything feel calm for the first time in days, calm but trembling, calm but poised before something she could not yet name. She paused when she saw Levi Whittaker standing near the kitchen counter. He wore a dark sweater that clung gently to the lines of his shoulders, sleeves rolled to his forearms. His hair was slightly unruly, as if he had run his hand through it more times than he wished to admit. But it was his face, unshaven, contemplative, shadowed, that made Emma's breath falter. He was staring at a set of documents spread across the marble countertop, tension rippling beneath his calm exterior. She watched him for a moment before she found her voice. "Good morning," Levi looked up abruptly, and something softened in his eyes the instant he saw her. "Good morning." His tone wrapped around her like a warm blanket, even though the shadows in his expression told her something was very wrong. Emma approached slowly, her bare feet making no sound against the polished floor. "You look troubled." He hesitated, then gestured for her to join him. She stepped closer, until their arms brushed lightly, a barely there contact that sent a soft jolt through both of them. "Troubled might be an understatement," he murmured. Emma searched his eyes. "Tell me." For a moment, he did not answer. Levi Whitaker was a man who lived behind a wall of elegant self-control, a fortress of discipline built over years of public scrutiny and private wounds. But now she felt him lowering the drawbridge, letting her inch closer. He exhaled. "Tessa found something this morning, something important." Emma's stomach tightened, related to the contract. He nodded. "And to the men involved." Her breath caught. "What is it?" Levi reached for one of the printed sheets, but instead of handing it to her, he took her hand gently, guiding her closer so she could see. His thumb brushed her knuckles without intention, or perhaps with too much intention. Emma felt her pulse quicken. On the paper was a series of names, dates, and payment trails. "Shell companies," Levi said, "layers of them, designed to hide the money flow." Emma traced the lines with her eyes. "This looks complicated." "It is," he murmured, "and that is intentional. But look here." He pointed to one particular entry. His finger brushed hers, lingering for a fraction of a second too long. The contact made her breath shake. Emma forced herself to focus. "This company, it is the one listed on the contract copy?" "Yes," Levi replied softly, "and we discovered it links directly to Victor Hale." Emma's pulse stilled. "So he is the one trying to use the contract against me?" "He is not alone in that," Levi said, voice darkening, "but he is the one who benefits the most, and the one who underestimated the wrong woman." She looked up at him, surprised. "Me?" Levi met her gaze fully, stepping closer, his presence enveloping her in warmth, and something deeper. "You," he whispered. "You are the reason their plans are unraveling, the reason I will not let them win." Emma's breath fluttered. The morning air between them thickened, becoming charged with a quiet, intimate tension that made her tremble. "Levi," she said softly, "you always say these things with such certainty, and I want to believe them, I do, but I still feel helpless in all of this." He reached up, cupping her cheek with a tenderness so gentle it made her eyes burn. "You are not helpless. You are brave. You walked into that room to save your father. You faced humiliation with dignity. And now you stand here still fighting." Emma closed her eyes at the warmth of his palm against her skin. "I am trying." "You are not trying alone," Levi murmured. She opened her eyes slowly, meeting his gaze. The depth in his eyes felt disarming, almost overwhelming. He stepped closer, their bodies separated by the slightest breath of space. "I need to tell you something," he said. Emma felt her breath catch. "What is it?" Levi hesitated, a long, quiet hesitation that felt heavy with meaning. He took her hand again, intertwining their fingers. "We cannot wait any longer," he murmured. "We have to confront Victor Hale." Emma's pulse spiked. "Confront him? How?" "With strategy," Levi said, "with evidence, and with someone he will not expect." Emma frowned slightly. "Who?" "You." Emma stiffened. "Me? Levi, I'm not ready for something like that." He stepped closer, gently lifting her chin so she would look at him. "You will not be alone. We will prepare every detail. But you are the only one who can speak to what happened that night, the only one they fear, because your truth has the power to destroy their lies." Emma's heart thudded painfully. "What if I fail?" Levi leaned in, his forehead brushing hers with a tenderness that sent shivers down her spine. "You will not," he whispered, "because I will be beside you, every second." She swallowed hard. "Why does it matter so much to you? This fight. Me." His hand slid from her cheek to rest lightly at the side of her neck, his thumb stroking softly, reverently. The gesture made her knees weaken. "Because," Levi said quietly, "for the first time in years I am fighting for something I cannot lose." Emma drew in a trembling breath. "Levi." His gaze flicked briefly to her lips, then back to her eyes with exquisite restraint. "I will not cross a line you are not ready for," he whispered, "but I need you to know something honest." Emma nodded slowly, unable to look away. "You matter to me." His voice lowered, rich with unspoken emotion. "More than I planned, more than is safe, more than I'm willing to admit to anyone but you." Her pulse erupted into a storm. "You matter to me too." His breath caught, just slightly, but enough for her to feel it. The space between them felt like a living thing, charged with longing and fear and tenderness so powerful it threatened to undo them. He lifted her hand to his chest, placing it over his heart. "Feel that?" he whispered. She nodded, her hand trembling beneath his. "It beats differently when you are near." Emma's knees weakened, her breath unsteady, her heart unraveling in soft waves. "Levi." He closed his eyes briefly, as if holding himself together. "Emma, if I lean any closer, I will not stop." Her breath trembled. "Maybe I do not want you to stop." Levi's eyes opened, blazing with restrained passion. "Do not say that, unless you mean it." "I mean it," she whispered. He exhaled sharply, his resolve flickering, but then he stepped back slightly, forcing space between them. Emma felt the loss immediately, like cool air rushing into the warmth they had created. "I cannot risk clouding your judgment," he murmured, "not when we need clarity more than anything." Emma pressed a hand to her heart, steadying herself. "You are trying to protect me from you now?" Levi let out a breath that bordered on a quiet groan. "I am trying to protect you from everything that could be used against us, and from myself, because I am not thinking clearly when I am this close to you." Emma's lips parted, and Levi's gaze flickered there again with a hunger so contained it ached. Their silence stretched, thick with longing. Then Tessa entered quietly, stopping short when she sensed the atmosphere. A faint blush rose to her cheeks, though she recovered quickly. "Levi," she said softly, "Miles is ready in the office. He needs you." Levi inhaled slowly, regaining his composure. "I will be there in a moment." Tessa nodded and withdrew. Emma exhaled shakily. "So, what do we do now?" Levi stepped closer again, not intimately this time, but with the steady presence of a man offering his strength. "Now," he murmured, "we prepare, we gather evidence, we build a plan they will not anticipate, and we do it together." Emma felt something steady inside her, a spark she had not felt in years. "Together," she echoed softly. Levi clasped her hand once more, lifting it to his lips in a slow, reverent gesture. His kiss brushed the back of her hand like a promise, warm and fragile and powerful all at once. "Emmeline," he whispered, "we are going to reclaim your name, and you will not face a single second of this alone." Her breath trembled. "I believe you." He held her gaze with quiet intensity. "Good, because I will not let you fall, not now, not ever." As Levi left the room to meet Miles, Emma remained standing in the glow of morning light, her heart thundering in her chest. She touched the place on her hand where his lips had rested, and warmth spread through her like a soft flame. She did not know what the world outside would do next, but she knew this. Levi Whitaker was no longer just the man who had saved her. He was the man she could not imagine facing this battle without. And perhaps, though she dared not say it aloud yet, he was becoming the man she could not imagine her life without at all. The afternoon sun stretched low over Nashville, spilling warm light across the safe house and turning its cream walls into shades of quiet gold. Yet inside the living room, despite the glow of late day, an unspoken heaviness settled like a fine mist. Emma Lane sat curled at the corner of the sofa, hugging her knees loosely, her gaze fixed on the blank television screen before her. She had not turned it on. She feared what she might see. She feared what she already knew the world thought of her. But more than anything, she feared what the next hours would bring. She could hear Levi Whitaker's voice down the hallway, low and firm, speaking with Miles and Tessa about strategy, about evidence, about consequences. His words drifted toward her like distant thunder, steady and commanding, yet tinged with something that made her chest tighten. A door closed softly. Footsteps approached. Then he appeared. Levi entered the living room with a quiet intensity, as though the air changed simply because he breathed within it. He wore a slate-grey shirt that matched the somber mood in his eyes, sleeves pushed back to reveal the strong lines of his forearms. His expression was serious, controlled, but the moment he saw her, a flicker of gentleness softened the tension around his mouth. "Emma," he said softly. She lifted her gaze to him, trying to read what he carried behind his eyes. "Is everything all right?" He hesitated before answering. "I need to talk to you." Those words alone made her heart stumble. She shifted upright, smoothing her palms nervously over the blanket draped across her lap. Levi sat beside her, close enough that she felt the warmth of his body, but not close enough to touch. He kept a careful distance, as though guarding her from something he feared he might reveal too abruptly. Emma studied him for a long moment. "Levi, what is wrong?" He exhaled slowly, leaning his elbows onto his knees, hands clasped tightly. Miles traced a series of messages sent last night, emails, encrypted calls, coded exchanges. "And?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "They were coordinating something," Levi said. "Something involving your father." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "They have him." Levi did not answer immediately. His silence was enough. Emma pressed a hand to her mouth, fighting the wave of fear rising inside her. "Is he alive?" "Yes," Levi said quickly, turning toward her, his eyes filled with urgency. "Your father is alive. But Emma, he is in a desperate situation." She trembled. "What do they want?" Levi reached out slowly, placing his hand over hers in a gesture so gentle it made her eyes sting. "They want leverage, they want silence, and they want control." Emma swallowed hard. "They want me." Levi's jaw hardened. "They think you are the key to everything they have been trying to build, and your father, he was pushed into something he did not fully understand." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. "Tell me what you found." Levi looked as though he were choosing every word, with the care of a man holding a fragile truth. "Your father made contact with Victor Hale on his own. He approached him before the night of the charity event. Not because he wanted to gamble you away, not because he wanted to put you in danger." Emma frowned, confusion swirling with dread. "Then why?" "He was trying to get out," Levi said quietly. "Out of the debt, out of the trap, out of their circle." Emma stared at him, shock settling like a heavy stone in her stomach. "He wanted to protect me." Levi nodded, his eyes softening. "He did. And what he did next, it was reckless, but it came from guilt and fear, not malice." She felt her breath tremble. "What did he do?" "He tried to destroy the original contract," Levi said, "the same one I tore. He believed if he got rid of it first, you would be safe." Emma covered her mouth as tears finally spilled from her eyes. Her father, flawed and broken, had tried to save her in the only way he knew, and failed. Again. Levi's hand tightened around hers, steadying her. Emma, your father told me something before he disappeared. Something he asked me to keep to myself until I believed you were strong enough to hear it. Her gaze snapped to his. Tell me. Levi looked torn. Emma, this may hurt. I can take it, she whispered. He took a long breath, as though absorbing her pain in advance. Your father believes they will not release him unless you go to them willingly. Emma's entire body went cold. No, she breathed. No, Levi, I cannot. I will not. You will not, Levi said fiercely, leaning close, taking her trembling hands in both of his. Emma, listen to me. You are not going to them. You are not sacrificing yourself. I will not allow that. She shook her head as tears streamed down her cheeks. But if my father dies because of me, he will not. Levi's voice broke slightly before he mastered it again. I will not let that happen. Emma felt her chest collapse inward, grief and fear crushing her breath. Levi moved closer, releasing one of her hands only to brush away her tears with his thumb, his touch soft and unbearably tender. Emma, he whispered, look at me. She lifted her gaze, her vision blurred. Levi's face was so close she could see the faint flecks of gold in his brown eyes, could feel his breath warm against her cheek. He cupped her face with both hands, steadying her trembling world. I promise you, he murmured, I will bring him back. You will not lose him. You will not lose anything more. Her voice broke. How can you be so sure? His thumbs stroked her cheeks with a tenderness that undid her. Because I have reasons to fight now. Because you matter to me more than you know. Her breath stilled, caught in the quiet fire of his confession. Levi lowered his forehead to hers, closing his eyes as if trying to lend her his strength through sheer proximity. The warmth of his skin, the soft brush of his breath, the steady rhythm of his presence, all of it wrapped around her like a lifeline. Emma, he whispered, his voice unsteady, if I could take every burden from your shoulders and carry it myself, I would. Her lips trembled. Why? Why are you doing this for me? His hands slid down to cradle the sides of her neck gently, his thumbs brushing the soft skin just below her jaw. Because, he murmured, I have spent so many years drowning in battles that meant nothing, but you are the one fight that makes sense, the one person whose safety matters more to me than my own. Emma's breath caught on a soft, involuntary sound. She lifted her hands, placing them lightly on his chest, feeling the steady thrum of his heartbeat beneath her palms. His eyes opened, meeting hers with a tenderness so profound it made her knees weaken. Levi, she whispered, I do not know how to handle this. The fear, the danger, you. His lips curved into a slow, aching half-smile. I do not know how to handle you either. Her heart thundered. He leaned in impossibly closer, his voice barely a breath. But I know I cannot stay away from you. Emma felt the truth of those words wash over her, like a wave of heat. She let out a trembling sigh, her forehead still against his. I am afraid of losing myself. You will not lose yourself, Levi whispered. You will find strength you never knew you had, and I will be beside you every step. She closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the intimacy of the moment. By the way, his hands held her like something precious. By the way, his presence steadied her, even as it consumed her. Levi, she breathed, I do not want to be brave alone. His voice deepened, breaking with emotion. You are not alone. Not anymore. Their breaths mingled. Their foreheads remained pressed together, as if neither dared to break the fragile, powerful connection binding them. Then a soft knock interrupted the silence. Miles. Levi pulled back slowly, reluctantly, his hands lingering at her cheeks for one final second. I have to take this, he murmured. Emma nodded, her voice too faint to trust. Go. He brushed a thumb gently down her cheek before standing. I will not be long. She watched him walk toward the hallway, strength in every step. burden in every shadow. Before he disappeared from sight, he looked back at her, one long, lingering look that held promises he had not yet spoken and emotions he could no longer contain. And when he was gone, Emma pressed her fingers to her lips, feeling the echo of everything he had not said aloud. She was falling deeper, he was falling too, and the world outside was tightening its grip. But in the quiet space between heartbeats, she felt something she had not felt in years. She felt chosen, she felt seen, she felt held, and she felt, with trembling certainty, that her life was no longer just her own. It belonged, to some fragile, dangerous, beautiful degree, to Levi Whitaker. The sky above Nashville had darkened into a deep velvet blue by the time Emma Lane stepped onto the balcony of the safe house that evening. A soft wind brushed against her face, carrying the scent of distant magnolias and the faint hum of city life. She wrapped her arms around herself as she gazed out into the quiet night, trying to steady her pulse, trying to make sense of the storm inside her chest. Everything felt too heavy, too sharp, too real. Her father was alive, but trapped. Victor Hale had resurfaced like a shadow from her worst nightmare. And Levi Whitaker, the man who had become her anchor in a world turned upside down, was fighting battles she did not know how to help him shoulder. She exhaled shakily, leaning against the railing. The metal felt cool beneath her palms, grounding her. Behind her, the balcony door opened with a soft click. Her heart recognized him before her eyes did. "Emma," Levi said gently. She turned, and for a moment she forgot how to breathe. Levi stood there in the doorway, the warm glow of the living room haloing his silhouette. He'd changed into a black sweater that softened the intensity of his shoulders and dark jeans that lent him a rare sense of simplicity. Yet even dressed casually, he carried an air of quiet authority that made her heartbeat quicken. He stepped out onto the balcony, closing the door with care. "Miles and Tessa are coordinating a plan. They will update us soon." Emma nodded, though her eyes lingered on him a moment too long. "Thank you." He approached slowly, stopping a few steps away, giving her space but offering presence. His voice softened into something intimate. "I noticed you came out here alone. Are you all right?" Emma hesitated before answering. "I do not know what I am. Everything feels overwhelming." Levi looked at her with that steady, grounding gaze she had come to rely on. "Talk to me." She shook her head, turning back toward the cityscape. "I am afraid." Levi moved closer, his footsteps barely audible against the stone floor. "Of what?" Her throat tightened. "Of losing the people I love, of making the wrong choice, of trusting someone who might get hurt because of me." Levi's breath caught softly. She had not meant to say it like that. She had not meant to reveal how deeply he had woven himself into her fears. But he heard it. He felt it. He stepped close enough that the warmth radiating from his body enveloped her. "Emma," he murmured, "look at me." She turned slowly, her heart pounding. Levi's eyes searched hers, deep and earnest. "I'm not afraid of standing beside you. I'm not afraid of the risks. What terrifies me," he confessed quietly, "is the thought of you facing any of this without me." Her breath trembled. "Levi." He took another step, closing the distance between them. His hand lifted toward her cheek, then stopped midway, hovering with exquisite restraint. "May I?" he whispered. Emma's voice was barely audible. "Yes." His fingers brushed her cheek gently, tracing the curve of her jaw with slow, reverent movements. The touch was tender, but beneath it lay a storm of emotion he struggled to contain. Emma leaned into his hand, her pulse racing. "You carry so much," Levi said softly, "more than anyone ever should." She blinked back tears. "I am trying to be strong." "You are strong," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Stronger than you realize, but even strong people deserve someone to lean on." Emma felt her eyes burn. "Then let me lean on you." Levi's thumb brushed away a tear before it could fall. "Always." The night around them deepened in silence, the quiet pulsing with unspoken truths. Levi's presence felt like a shelter she had never known, a warmth she had never allowed herself to want. She stepped closer, unable to resist the pull that drew her to him. "You make me feel safe," she whispered. A soft sound escaped him, something between a sigh and a confession. I want to give you a life where fear is not your shadow." Emma shook her head slightly. "I do not need a hero." Levi smiled faintly, brushing a stray hair from her cheek. "I know you need someone who sees you." Her heart nearly broke. "And you see me too clearly," he murmured. Their eyes held in a long, quiet gaze that hummed with longing. Levi lowered his forehead to hers, closing the space between them but not quite crossing it. "Emma," he whispered, "there is something I need to tell you." She felt his breath against her lips, warm and steady. "Tell me." He pulled back just enough to look directly into her eyes. "Victor Hale contacted us tonight." Emma froze. "What did he say?" "He sent a message addressed to me, and to you." Emma's stomach twisted. "What did he want?" Levi's jaw tightened. "He said he was willing to negotiate." Emma blinked, stunned. "Negotiate?" "Yes," Levi replied softly. "He claims he is open to releasing your father, but only under certain conditions." Emma's breath caught. "What conditions?" Levi reached for her hand and held it gently, as though preparing her for impact. "He wants a meeting." Emma's heart dropped. "With me?" "With both of us," Levi said. He insisted. Emma's fear surged. "Levi, this is dangerous." "I know," he murmured, "but walking blindly is more dangerous." She squeezed his hand tightly. "What if he tries to trap us?" "He will not," Levi said, his voice a mixture of steel and tenderness, "because I will not let him." Emma met his gaze, her voice trembling. "You cannot promise that." "No," Levi admitted, "but I can promise that I will protect you with everything I have." His honesty shook her more than false confidence ever could. "And Emma," he added, his voice deepening, "I need you to understand something before we move forward." She drew in a shaky breath. "What is it?" He stepped even closer, until their bodies were only a breath apart. His eyes softened, darkened, warmed. "This fight, your father's rescue, is the war with Hale." His thumbs stroked her knuckles slowly. "I'm not doing any of this out of obligation." Emma's pulse raced. "Then why?" Levi inhaled deeply, as though steadying the truth he was about to reveal. "Because I care for you, deeply, more every day." Emma felt her breath catch in her throat. "And that," Levi whispered, lifting her hand to his chest and placing it over his heart, "terrifies me more than any threat Hale could make." Emma felt the strong, steady rhythm beneath her palm, the beat of a man who held power in the world but felt vulnerable in front of her. Her voice trembled. "I care for you too." Levi closed his eyes, exhaling as though her words were the one truth he had been desperate to hear. "Emma, you do not know what that does to me." She stepped closer, her free hand brushing lightly along his jaw. "Then show me." Levi's eyes opened, filled with a mix of longing and restraint. "If I show you, I will not be able to pull back." "I do not want you to pull back," she whispered. His breath shuddered, but instead of leaning in, he lifted his hand to cradle the back of her neck with exquisite gentleness. "Emma, I need you to understand that this is real for me, not temporary, not a distraction." "It is real for me too," she said softly. His forehead touched hers again, more decisively this time. Then let this be our truth. Whatever happens next, we face it together. Emma nodded, her heart racing. Together. For a moment they simply breathed in the same air, letting the world beyond the balcony fall away. Levi's thumb traced slow circles against her skin. Emma's hand slid from his jaw to his chest, feeling the warmth beneath his shirt. Every movement felt deliberate, powerful, sacred. Then Levi pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "Emma." "There is one more thing," Hale said. Emma stiffened. "What?" Levi hesitated, his expression tightening. "He wants proof that you are with me. Not as a facade. Not as a story." Emma frowned. "What kind of proof?" "He did not specify," Levi replied. "But he insinuated that he doubted the sincerity of our relationship, and if he believes it is fake—" Emma understood instantly. "Then he will not release my father." Levi nodded slowly. Silence fell between them. Emotional, tense, electric. Levi cupped her face again, his hands warm and steady. "We will not let him dictate what we are, or what we feel." Emma leaned into his hands. "No, we will not." Their eyes locked, their breaths mingled, and in a voice so soft it barely carried through the night, Levi whispered, "Emma, whatever happens next, know that you matter to me far more than any negotiation." Her heart swelled with both fear and tenderness. "And you matter to me far more than you should." Levi let out a soft, helpless breath, a sound wrapped in longing. His thumb brushed her lower lip. Her pulse ignited, but instead of crossing the line that trembled between them, he slid his hand down to hold hers again. "Come inside," he whispered. "Stay with me." Emma nodded, her voice caught in her throat. As they walked back inside with their fingers intertwined, the night air still clinging to their skin, Emma realized something with breathtaking clarity. This was no longer a story about danger and contracts. It was a story about two hearts caught in the same storm, drawn together with a force neither could fight. And as Levi closed the balcony door behind them, his hand still wrapped firmly around hers, Emma knew this truth. She was not just falling for him. She was already his. Night had settled fully over Nashville, draping the safe house in shadows softened only by the warm glow of lamps scattered around the living room. The world outside felt hushed, as if holding its breath alongside Emma Lane's racing heart. She stood near the large window, hands pressed lightly against the glass, watching the distant city lights blur into soft halos. Every flicker of movement in the darkness made her chest tighten. Every whisper of wind felt like a warning, but beneath the fear thrummed a second, deeper rhythm, an ache she could no longer deny. Levi Whitaker, the man who had stepped into the wreckage of her life without hesitation, the man who fought for her, protected her, challenged her, steadied her, and looked at her as if she was something rare and fragile and worth fighting for. She closed her eyes. The memory of his hands on her face earlier that evening still lingered like heat beneath her skin. A soft creak behind her made her turn. Levi stood in the doorway, illuminated by the soft lamplight behind him. He had changed into a simple black t-shirt and dark pants, but even in such ordinary clothing he carried a presence that filled the room. His hair was slightly tousled, his expression shadowed with worry, but the moment he saw her, something in his face eased. "Emma," he said gently, "you disappeared from the office. I wanted to check on you." She swallowed, unsure whether she wanted him close or far, unsure whether she could hold herself together in his presence. "I needed air," she murmured. He walked toward her slowly, his footsteps steady and deliberate. "You have been trembling ever since we received Hale's message." Emma looked down at her hands, surprised to find they were, in fact, trembling. "I did not notice." Levi stopped just in front of her, close enough that she felt the warmth radiating from his body. "I notice everything about you." Her breath hitched. She looked up into his eyes, those deep brown eyes that held a storm of emotions he rarely spoke aloud, and she felt that familiar sense of being seen, truly, painfully seen. "I am terrified," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "What Hale wants, what he could do, what we might have to face." Levi stepped closer, lifting his hand slowly toward her shoulder. He brushed his fingers along her arm in a light, calming gesture that made her skin hum. "Emma, you do not have to hide your fear from me. I am here." Her heart thudded painfully. What if he hurts my father? A muscle in Levi's jaw tightened. "We will not let that happen." "You cannot promise that," she whispered. "No," he said softly, "but I can promise you this. I will not let you face him alone." She blinked, feeling tears threatening to spill. "You should not carry my burden." He shook his head, his voice low and steady. "It is not your burden anymore. It is ours." The word ours made her breath falter. Emma turned toward the window again, trying to steady her emotions. The weight of the night pressed around her, heavy and suffocating. She felt Levi step beside her and rest his hand lightly at the small of her back, a touch firm enough to steady her, but gentle enough to ask permission. Emma leaned into the warmth of his hand without thinking. The contact soothed her, grounded her, ignited something deep and unspoken inside her. For several quiet moments they stood together, watching the darkness beyond the glass. "It feels like the world is closing in," she whispered. Levi's fingers traced a slow, reassuring line along her spine. "Then I will push it back." Emma let out a soft, trembling breath. "Why do you care so much?" Levi turned to her fully, sliding his hand from her back to her shoulder. He waited until she met his gaze. "Because I have spent years surrounded by people who wanted something from me," he said. "People who cared only about what my name could offer." His eyes softened. "Then you appeared, not asking, not taking, just fighting to survive with dignity." Emma looked away, overwhelmed. "I do not feel dignified, not anymore." Levi reached out, gently lifting her chin so she would face him again. His touch was warm, his fingers steady. "You walked into hell for your father. You faced humiliation with grace. You survived something that would have broken many. And even now, you still think of everyone else first." Her eyes glistened with tears. "I do not want to be seen as weak." "You are not weak," Levi said, his voice rich with emotion. "You are the strongest woman I have ever known." Emma swallowed hard. His words pierced through her fear like light through fog. He stepped closer, the air between them thick with quiet tension. "Emma, there is something else I need to tell you." Her pulse quickened. "What is it?" He hesitated, as if choosing between restraint and truth. Then he lifted both hands to cradle her face with gentle firmness. "When Hale says he wants proof of us," he murmured, "it is because he senses something real happening, something he cannot manipulate." Emma's breath trembled. "Real?" Levi nodded slowly. "What I feel when I look at you, it is not part of a strategy." Warmth spread through her chest. "Terrifying, beautiful." "Levi," she whispered. He leaned in slightly, his forehead nearly touching hers, his voice dropping to a husky whisper that made her knees weaken. "Tell me you feel it too." Her heart pounded. She felt heat rush through her, not lust, but something deeper, more vulnerable. "I feel it," she admitted, tears filling her eyes. "I feel everything, and it scares me." Levi closed his eyes briefly, as if her words unraveled something inside him. "Emma, let me hold your fear. Let me carry part of it." Her breath trembled. "I do not know how." He opened his eyes again, his hands still tenderly cupping her face. "Start by trusting that I am not going anywhere." Emma lifted her hands slowly, resting them against his chest. The warmth beneath his shirt, the steady beat of his heart, the strength he radiated, it soothed her more than words ever could. "Levi," she whispered, What if this ruins you? Your reputation, your work, your life, because of me." He shook his head, brushing his thumb lightly across her cheekbone. "You are not my ruin. You are the reason I wake up wanting to fight harder." Her breath caught, the intensity in his eyes, the sincerity in his voice, the closeness of his body. It overwhelmed her senses. He leaned in a fraction closer, their lips just a whisper apart, though he did not touch her. "Emma, I need you to know something before we take another step." She felt her pulse flutter uncontrollably. "Tell me." His gaze fixed on hers, deep and unflinching. "I am falling for you." Emma's heart stopped, then raced with a force that almost hurt. "Levi," she breathed. He shook his head slightly, keeping her face gently between his hands. "You do not have to say it back. I just need you to understand why I'm fighting like this. Why I cannot let anything happen to you." Her vision blurred with tears she could no longer contain. She slid her hands from his chest to his shoulders, gripping him as if anchoring herself. "I do not want you to get hurt because of me." "I am hurt every time you cry," Levi whispered. "Every time you shake, every time you think you are alone." She let out a soft, broken sound. Levi exhaled sharply, as if battling every instinct inside him. "Emma, if I kiss you, I will not be able to pretend this is just protection." Her breath stopped. "Then do not pretend." A quiet, trembling sound escaped him. He leaned his forehead against hers, breathing her in, giving her every chance to step back. She did not. She lifted her face a little closer, barely a breath away. "Levi," she whispered, "please." He groaned softly, a raw sound of longing and restraint. His hand slid down to her waist, pulling her gently but firmly against him. But instead of claiming her lips, he pressed a soft, reverent kiss to her forehead, then another to her temple, then one just below her ear, each touch filled with emotion so deep it made her knees weaken. Emma gasped softly, her fingers digging into his shoulders. "Levi, I want you," he whispered against her skin. "More than I have wanted anything in years. But I also respect you. And I will not cross that line until I know you are safe." Emma trembled in his arms, overwhelmed by love she was too afraid to name. He drew back just enough to look into her eyes. "Let me be your strength tonight." She nodded, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Levi gathered her into his arms, holding her tightly against his chest. Emma curled into him, her cheek pressed to the warmth of his body, her hands fisting lightly in his shirt. His heartbeat thudded steadily beneath her ear, strong and reassuring. For long minutes they stayed like that, wrapped in each other, wrapped in something fragile and powerful. Then Levi murmured softly into her hair, "I promise you, Emma Lane, no matter what Hale demands, no matter how dark this gets, I will not let you face that man alone." Emma closed her eyes, breathing him in, letting his strength seep into her bones. "I believe you." He kissed her hair, slow and tender. "Good. Because starting tomorrow, everything changes." But Emma did not think of tomorrow. She thought only of Levi's arms around her, of the warmth of his breath, of the promise in his voice. And for the first time in weeks, despite the storm circling outside, she felt safe. She felt cherished. She felt loved, even if neither of them had spoken the word aloud. And as she tightened her arms around him, she felt something else too, a promise, a bond forming in the dark, soft and unbreakable, a bond that neither fear nor danger could sever. The sun had not yet risen when Emma Lane stepped into the quiet kitchen of the safe house, her bare feet brushing softly against the cool tile. Dawn hovered just beyond the horizon, casting faint streaks of lavender and deep blue across the sky. The world felt suspended in a fragile stillness, as if every breath held the weight of what was to come. She stood near the counter, Her fingers curled lightly around a warm mug of tea she had barely touched. Her mind, restless and tangled, replayed every conversation from the night before, every whispered promise, every touch, every fear. Victor Hale wanted a meeting. Her father was alive, but held as leverage, and Levi Whittaker had vowed to stand beside her no matter the cost. She pressed a trembling hand to her forehead. She had barely slept. Instead, she had lain awake in the dimly lit guest room, her thoughts consumed by the ache of uncertainty and the deep, undeniable pull toward Levi that grew stronger each day. She had never imagined she would fall for a man like him, powerful, intimidating, brilliant, and yet carrying a tenderness that unraveled her every defense. But her heart had chosen him long before she admitted it to herself. A soft sound made her lift her gaze. Levi stood at the doorway, his silhouette framed by the gentle glow of the hallway light. He wore a simple grey t-shirt and dark sweatpants, his hair tousled from sleep, his expression shadowed with something deeper than exhaustion. When his eyes found hers, she felt the familiar, electric tightening in her chest. "Emma," he said quietly. She swallowed. "I could not sleep." He stepped into the kitchen, his movements slow, deliberate, as if he feared startling her. "Neither could I." His voice carried the husky warmth of early morning, the kind that made her stomach flutter. He approached her, stopping only inches away. The soft space between them pulsed with unspoken emotion. He brushed his fingers lightly across her cheek, the touch so gentle it made her eyes burn. "How are you holding up?" Emma forced a shaky breath. "I am scared." His hand slid to the back of her neck, his thumb stroking slowly along her skin. "I know. I keep thinking about my father," she whispered, "about what Hale might do if we do not agree to his terms." Levi's jaw tightened. "Your father is alive. That is what we focus on." "But for how long?" she asked, her voice breaking. "What if we fail?" Levi took her hand, threading his fingers through hers with a tenderness that steadied her heartbeat. He brought her closer, resting their joined hands against his chest. "Emma," he murmured, "I need you to listen to me. Everything we do today will be calculated, controlled, and protected. I will not walk you into danger. I will not give Hale the upper hand, and I will not leave your father behind." Tears welled in her eyes. "I trust you, but trusting you does not erase the fear." His expression softened, a shadow of vulnerability tracing his features. "Fear means you understand the stakes. It does not mean you are weak." She lowered her gaze to the steady rise and fall of his chest beneath her hand. "You make me feel stronger than I am." "That is because you are stronger than you believe," he said, lifting her chin, "and because I see you, all of you." Her breath quivered. "Levi, yesterday, everything between us, I meant every word." He stepped even closer, his forehead brushing hers, his voice dropping to a tender whisper. "So did I." His lips hovered close, so close she could feel the warmth of his breath, but he did not kiss her. Not yet. There was a reverence in his restraint that made her heart ache. "I have something important to tell you," he said quietly. She looked up, sensing tension beneath the softness in his voice. "What is it?" Levi hesitated, a long, heavy hesitation that made Emma's pulse quicken. "Last night, after you went to your room, Miles received an encrypted call from Hale." Emma stiffened. "What did he say?" Levi took her hand again, holding it firmly. "Hale sent us proof of life." Emma covered her mouth with her free hand, tears gathering instantly. "My father, he is alive," Levi confirmed, scared but unharmed. A sob escaped her lips, but Levi gently wiped her tears with his thumb. "Why did you not tell me last night?" she whispered. "Because Levi answered softly. I needed to confirm the authenticity first, and I needed you to rest. Emma shook her head. I would rather know the truth than sleep in fear. Levi nodded. And now you do, but there is more. Her stomach twisted. What else? Levi exhaled deeply. Hale proposed a location for the meeting. Private, neutral. He claims he wants to negotiate directly. Emma's pulse spiked. Do you believe him? I believe he wants something, Levi replied. And men like him do not negotiate without leverage. That is why we must be prepared. He slid his hands up her arms, holding her gently but firmly. Emma, I need you to stay close to me today. No wandering, no stepping away, not even for a moment. Emma nodded. I will not leave your side. He held her gaze, something warm and fierce flickering behind his eyes. Good. Because losing sight of you is not something I intend to let happen. Her breath trembled. I'm afraid of what he will ask. Whatever it is, Levi murmured, I will stand between you and his demands. Emotion surged through Emma so intensely she could barely speak. Levi, you cannot always protect me from yourself. He froze. What do you mean? Emma lifted her hand, resting it gently on his cheek. Last night, when you held me, when you spoke to me, you were protecting me with your whole heart. That is more dangerous than anything Hale could ever do. Levi's breath caught. Emma. She swallowed hard, her voice trembling. You said you were falling for me. Levi, I am falling too. His eyes darkened with emotion, and he stepped closer, his hand sliding around her waist, pulling her carefully against him. Say it again. Her voice quivered. I am falling for you. A quiet, raw sound escaped him, half relief, half longing. He pressed his forehead to hers, his hands trembling slightly against her waist. Emma, you do not know what that does to me. Her fingers curled gently in the fabric of his shirt. Then show me. He lifted her chin with exquisite tenderness, his thumb brushing her lips. He leaned in, but stopped just shy of kissing her, the restraint in his gaze more intimate than any touch. If I kiss you, he whispered, I will not be able to hold back everything I feel. Emma exhaled shakily. Then do not hold back. Levi closed his eyes, fighting for control, fighting the moment, fighting himself. But when he opened them again, she saw the truth in the depths of his gaze. Not now, he murmured, voice thick with desire and reverence. Not when you are scared, not when we are about to face Hale. Emma nodded slowly, understanding, even though her heart ached. Then stay close. Always, he said softly. The morning unfolded quickly after that. Tessa briefed them on communication protocols. Miles confirmed surveillance measures. Vehicles were prepared, routes selected, contingencies reviewed. But through it all, Emma felt Levi's presence beside her like a quiet pulse. His hand brushed her back when she faltered. His voice guided her through instructions. His eyes found hers every time fear rose, anchoring her with wordless promise. By late morning they arrived at the meeting site, a secluded glass-walled business center on the outskirts of the city. Empty parking lot, neutral grounds, paid security, cameras removed hours earlier. A perfect trap. Levi kept Emma close, his hand never leaving her waist or her hand. She felt his tension beneath the calm exterior, sensed his mind calculating every detail. Inside the building, the lights glowed faintly. The air smelled of disinfectant and cold metal. Footsteps echoed. Levi leaned close, his voice barely audible. Stay behind me. She nodded, her heart pounding. Then Victor Hale emerged from the shadows, tall, immaculate, smiling with the arrogance of a man who believed he owned the room. Mr. Whitaker, Hale drawled. Miss Lane, what a pleasure. Emma's breath caught. She felt Levi's arm tighten protectively around her. Where is her father? Levi demanded, his voice sharp as steel. Hale smirked. Safe, for now, but that depends entirely on Miss Lane. Emma's blood ran cold. "Let him go," she said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. "He is not part of this anymore." Hale arched an eyebrow. "Is he not? He signed the contract that brought us to this moment." Levi stepped forward, shielding Emma slightly. "That contract is invalid. It was coerced. It will not hold." Hale chuckled softly. "You underestimate how much power certain men hold when they want something." Emma felt Levi tense beside her. Hale's gaze drifted to her, lingering in a way that made her stomach twist. "My proposal is simple. I want confirmation that your relationship with Mr. Whittaker is genuine." Emma swallowed hard. "Why does that matter to you?" "Because if it is real," Hale said, "then your father's debt becomes irrelevant. You are no longer a pawn. You are a protected woman of influence, untouchable." Emma shivered. "And if it is not real?" Levi asked quietly. Hale smiled. "Then I keep the contract intact, and her father remains in my custody." Emma felt the room tilt. Levi's hand closed around hers, firm and warm. "Enough games." "No games," Hale replied. "Just proof." Emma lifted her chin. "What proof?" Hale's eyes glimmered with calculated cruelty. "Show me the sincerity of your bond. Show me something that cannot be staged." Emma's gaze flicked to Levi, his jaw tightened. His eyes softened only for her. She whispered, "Levi, what do we do?" He cupped her face gently, his touch full of reverence and emotion. "Emma, look at me." She did, and the entire room fell away. He brushed his thumb along her cheek. She felt her breath tremble. "Do you trust me?" he whispered. "Yes," she breathed. His forehead lowered to hers, his hands slid to her waist. Her fingers curled in his shirt, and without another word, Levi kissed her, not with hesitation, not with fear, but with a slow, aching tenderness that made her knees weaken. His lips moved against hers with restrained emotion, deepening only when she answered him with trembling certainty. The kiss grew warm, reverent, protective, filled with every truth he had held inside. When they finally pulled apart, breathless and shaken, Emma leaned into him, her forehead pressed to his chest, her fingers gripping the fabric over his heart. Levi held her tightly, his lips brushing her hair. Hale stared at them, expression unreadable. "That," Levi said in a low, unwavering voice, "is our proof." Emma felt his heartbeat beneath her cheek, steady, certain. Hers. Whatever happened next, whatever storm waited beyond these walls, this truth remained unshaken. They loved each other, and that love was now powerful enough to change everything. The hills outside Nashville glowed with the soft gold of a late autumn afternoon, the kind of light that wrapped itself around memories and made even the simplest moments feel eternal. The Whittaker estate, once a fortress of solitude and strategy, now breathed warmth and quiet joy. Children's laughter drifted through the air, carried by a gentle breeze that rustled the tall oaks flanking the property. Emma Whittaker stood on the back porch, her hands resting lightly on the wooden railing as she watched two small figures chase each other across the wide pasture. Their daughter, Lily, with her bright chestnut curls bouncing behind her, darted playfully around her younger brother James, who was determined to keep up, despite being only 3. The sight made Emma smile in a way she knew would never grow old. Behind her, footsteps approached. Steady, familiar, grounding. Levi slipped his arm around her waist, pulling her gently against his side. He pressed a soft kiss to her temple, lingering for a moment as if savoring the quiet rhythm of the life they had built. "They get faster every day," he murmured. Emma laughed softly. "I blame you for their stubbornness." "And I blame you for their courage," he replied warmly. She leaned into him, feeling his steady heartbeat through the fabric of his shirt. 8 years had passed since their world had nearly collapsed. 8 years of victories, setbacks, healing, and learning to breathe again. Levi had changed in subtle ways. The intensity in him had mellowed into something grounded, something deeply protective and tender. A few silver strands brushed the edges of his dark hair now, only making him more striking. But his eyes, those deep brown eyes that once held worry like a shadow, now glowed with contentment. Emma glanced up at him. "Do you ever think about how close we came to losing all of this?" Levi's expression softened. "Every day. And every day I thank God we did not." The memory of that final confrontation with Victor Hale flickered in her mind. The world had watched with bated breath as investigations unfolded, exposing Hale's long-hidden crimes. He had not gone down without a fight, but truth had prevailed, and his fall from grace had been swift and permanent. "What happened to Hale again?" Emma asked gently, though she already knew. It was a question she asked once a year, perhaps as a reminder of how far they had come. Levi's jaw tightened just slightly. "Federal prison, 25 years. He will not walk free before Lily is grown." Emma nodded, releasing the breath she had held. "And my father," she continued, the old ache flickering but no longer breaking her. "He changed, Levi. He truly did." Levi's hand tightened at her waist, supportive. "He did. And he paid his price with dignity." Her father, once trapped in cycles of desperation, had rebuilt his life brick by brick after surviving Hale's cruelty. For the past 6 years, he had run a small community center dedicated to helping families escape predatory financial traps. An act of penance that became his purpose. He visited the Whitaker estate every Sunday, a doting grandfather in every sense. "He is late today," Emma mused. "He called earlier," Levi said. "He's bringing Lily her favorite cookies." Emma laughed. "That explains the excitement." Levi smiled, watching their children with awe that never faded. "Emma, I still cannot believe this is our life." She rested her head on his shoulder. 8 years ago, I could not imagine surviving a single week. And now, look at us. Levi's voice grew quiet, reverent. "I would go through all of it again if it meant ending right here." Emma felt tears prick her eyes, not of sadness, but of overwhelming gratitude. She turned in his arms, placing her palm against his cheek. "We fought hard for this, for us, and we won." He kissed her lightly, a soft, familiar touch that carried 8 years of devotion. "We did more than win," he whispered. "We grew. We healed. We built something no threat could destroy." Emma searched his face, memorizing every line and shadow. "Do you ever miss the man you were before all this?" Levi shook his head immediately. He was lonely, restless, half alive. He brushed his thumb along her jaw, tender and sure. "You gave my life meaning, Emma. You helped me become the man I wanted to be." Her breath hitched at the sincerity in his voice. "And you," he said, his gaze softening, "became the strongest woman I have ever known." Emma blinked back tears. "I could not have done it alone." "You did not have to," he murmured. A sudden shriek of laughter pulled their attention back to the pasture. Lily had tripped into a pile of leaves, and James ran to her with wide-eyed concern before she sat up giggling. Levi chuckled under his breath, his arm tightening protectively around Emma. "They are us," Emma whispered, "pieces of both of us." "Yes," Levi said softly, "your heart, my fire, your resilience, my stubbornness." "And your smile," Emma added with a grin. He raised an eyebrow. "Which one? The charming one or the dangerous one?" Emma nudged him playfully. "Both." Levi laughed, the sound warm and deep, before kissing her cheek affectionately. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by the sound of a car pulling up the gravel driveway. Emma recognized the familiar old sedan immediately. "Speak of the devil," she teased. Levi smiled. "Your father always insists on driving himself." They watched as her father climbed out of the car, carrying a tin of cookies and waving enthusiastically to the children. His hair had grown even grayer, but he stood tall, his posture stronger than the day Levi had rescued him 8 years earlier. Emma's heart softened. Forgiveness had not been easy, but love had rebuilt a home where wounds once lived. Levi kissed her temple once more. "You should greet him." Emma nodded, but before stepping away she turned back to Levi, taking his hand. "Thank you." Levi blinked in surprise. "For what?" "For giving me a life I never thought I deserved, for loving me, for choosing me every day." Emotion flickered across his features, raw and beautiful. He cupped her face gently. "Emma, I will choose you in every lifetime." Her breath trembled. "And I will love you in all of them," he whispered. Emma pressed her forehead to his, savoring the warmth of the man who had once walked into her life as a stranger and stayed as her anchor, her protector, her partner, her love. "Forever," she murmured. "Forever," he echoed. And so Emma walked toward her father with her heart full, Levi's hand in hers, their children running joyfully ahead. 8 years had passed since the world tried to break her. 8 years since Levi had held her in the darkness and promised she would not face her fears alone. He had kept that promise. Their love, tested across distance and danger, now lived as something unshakable and true, rooted in trust, strengthened by sacrifice, and nourished by every quiet morning and gentle night they shared. And as the sun dipped lower behind the trees, painting the sky in shades of gold, Emma knew this with absolute certainty. There was no part of her life untouched by love, no part of her heart untouched by Levi, and no future she wanted that did not begin and end with him. Every love story leaves behind a trace, a lesson, a quiet echo that stays with us long after the final scene fades. Emma and Levi's journey reminds us that even when life breaks us open, even when fear, betrayal, or uncertainty threaten to steal our strength, love can rebuild what seemed lost. Not the fairy tale kind of love that arrives perfectly wrapped, but the kind that grows from courage, loyalty, forgiveness, and the choice, day after day, to stand beside someone even when the world feels heavy. Their story shows us that healing is possible, that standing up after being hurt is not a sign of weakness, but of extraordinary bravery, that we are all worthy of a love that protects, nurtures, and transforms us, and that sometimes the most unexpected people arrive in our lives to show us what we were always meant to become. Now, I would love to know what you felt while living this story. Did Emma's strength inspire you? Did Levi's devotion touch something in your heart? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your reflections make this community feel alive. And if you watched all the way to the end, write the word courage in the comments. It is the perfect word for this story, a quiet salute to Emma's journey and to anyone who chooses love despite fear. Seeing that word will let me know you stayed with us until the final, heartfelt moment. If you wish to support the team that pours passion into bringing these romances to life, you can send a super thanks in any amount you feel comfortable giving. Your kindness keeps these stories alive. And if supporting this way is not possible for you, sharing this video with friends or family is another beautiful way to help. It means more than you know. Do not forget to check out the other narrations linked in the cards, more emotional journeys, more unforgettable romances, more stories that may speak to your heart. Thank you for being here. Thank you for feeling this story with us. May you carry a piece of Emma and Levi's courage into your own life, and may love, in all its forms, always find you.